Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Smash JT. I tried to warn the video game industry years ago that if they continued going down this path of more microtransactions, loot boxes, and taking advantage of average Joe consumer, that eventually the federal government was going to step in. And guess what? It happened.
JT. Earlier this year at the confirmation hearing for most of you, I discussed the possibility of the FTC examining the issue of children in the video game space.
The United States Federal Trade Commission, otherwise known as the FTC, has agreed to begin investigating loot boxes, focusing on how they impact children. Junior New Hampshire Senator Maggie Hassan questioned commissioners at the FTC during a Senate commerce, and this is something that was bound to happen the way EA, Warner Brothers, Activision Blizzard, and so many other AAA publishers kept pushing the boundaries.
Loot boxes will represent a $50 billion industry by the year 2022, according to the latest research estimates.
A 50 billion with a B, $50 billion industry by the year of 2022. And if they kept going down this road, eventually the government was going to be forced to step in. And while I look at this and say, maybe that's a good thing because they'll start imposing laws to stop people taking advantage of unknowing children or even grown-ass adults that don't know any better, unfortunate side effects like the slippery slope come into effect. The video game industry is supposed to self-regulate itself. That was the whole point of the ESRB back when that got formulated because of games like Mortal Kombat and Night Trap. And since that day, the video game industry was supposedly doing the right thing along the way, but somewhere along the line it got twisted and tangled, and the ESRB was almost in cahoots with these AAA publishers to ensure that what they wanted to go through was acceptable. And now we've come to a point where the government sees what's going on, they're looking at the ESRB, they're looking at the video game industry, and they're saying, guys, you seriously are screwing this over.
Children may be particularly susceptible to engaging with these in-game purchases, which are often considered integral components of video games.
Oh, won't somebody please think of the children?
And just this month, Great Britain's Gambling Commission released a report finding that 30% of children have used loot boxes in video games.
Gee, do you really think that wasn't coming? I mean, looking at the video game industry and the heads of EA and Take-Two Entertainment, and then looking over at Ubisoft and WB and all these other gigantic AAA publishers, and we say, you couldn't have really held back just a little bit, you couldn't have reeled it in. When all the public pressure was coming down on you guys, you doubled down. Instead of backing off, instead of saying, hey, we were wrong about Star Wars Battlefront 2, we won't let that happen again. And then literally the next game that comes out has just as much microtransactions, but they're just hidden better. There's a serious issue in the video game industry on the whole. And the reason why this frustrates me so much is because I know the US government. I know when they get their hands tangled in issues that don't involve them and they're not familiar with and they don't really understand how it works, they start overreaching their bounds and start making rules that should not necessarily be implemented, but because they perceive it to be a certain way, they make a law and then it affects people that were not even in the wrong in the first place. And because a lot of these big guys, will say bully AAA publishers, kept overstepping their bounds, everybody in the game industry now has to pay for it. So yes, in a weird way, I'm happy to see video game industry getting regulation finally on loot boxes, although I know deep down what comes of this is going to be some torn up, blown to hell piece of crap law that really has little to do fixing the loot box and a whole lot more to do with preventing creativity going forward from the entire game industry on the whole. We already knew that Belgium and the Netherlands were working on laws to enforce limiting loot boxes and what they're able to do with them, but now it's spread to Australia, and now, as of this moment, it is spreading to the US. So yes, it's good that loot boxes are finally getting a microscope, but that's a bad thing when you pan out to the entire scope of the game industry. When the government gets involved, nothing good ever happens. And ultimately, people shouldn't get mad at the US government when they blow this to hell and do something really stupid, because they don't know any better. Most of these senators don't even play video games. They don't understand how they work. They don't understand what people even want out of video games and if it's okay or not. They make rules based off of gambling laws and other things that speculate on random areas that don't have anything to do with loot boxes. So this is a new frontier for them to try to attack. And they don't play video games, so they're probably not going to make the most precise laws possible to fix the problem. But I won't get mad at them because they're not the issue. They don't know any better. What I am upset at is EA, Take-Two, Warner Brothers, Ubisoft. I could go on. There are too many companies out there that take full advantage of the consumer and honestly give the rest of the AAA industry a bad name. And don't even get me started on indie companies that are just trying to make it, and they're gonna have laws coming down on them that are going to hurt their creativity. You don't believe me? Just watch. Anyways, that's my thoughts on this entire crap fest that's happening, and we gotta all deal with it thanks to EA and all their other cahoots people of Blizzard Entertainment, Activision. Everything else in the game industry is just, if they just do the right thing, which one would think isn't too much to ask this day and age. Clearly it is. If you give them an inch, they take a mile, and in so of doing that, the US government is going to destroy everything. I sincerely fear what's happening next with the laws that will be coming down out of this. I'm very intrigued and interested to see how the government handles it, but as of right now, I am just beyond upset at these AAA companies that took it to the point of making this happen. So all gamers out there, don't get mad at the US government. Don't get mad at the companies that are trying to make good games. Direct your anger at these AAA companies that caused this to happen in the first place. That's all I got for you guys today, but let me know down in the comments how you feel about the US government coming down and intervening yet again with the video game industry. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, have a good one.
Would you commit to undertaking this project and keeping this committee informed about it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. I'm seeing nodding heads.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you.